Well, welcome everybody. Welcome again to Apostolos, where we believe that everyone who God saves is also called to be sent. And if you haven't already, I want to encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with those who are of like mind, who are missional, and want to see God move in a very strong Pentecostal way. Joining me today, as always, is our current senior pastor, Pastor Klayton Cole. And today, what we want to do is we want to talk about some of the events that have transpired as our church is in a season right now. As of this recording, our church is in a season of major shift and a major transition, which we want to get to and talk about. So, welcome, Pastor Cole. Thank you for joining us on Apostolos.
Hey, good to be here. It's my
Yeah.
second
It's your
podcast.
second time, just like the other guy, Pastor Josh. It was his second time too. And can you share with us? We're in a season of change and transition. And for those who may not know what is happening currently at our church, can you just share with us one of the biggest major shifts that we're in the midst of right now?
Well, in case you haven't heard yet, there is a major shift and transition in as far as the lead pastor for the church. And on June 11th,
Mm-hmm.
we had a special election to affirm Pastor Josh to
Mm-hmm.
be the next senior pastor of the church. And from now till the beginning of next year, about 6 months, he is pastor elect and he's shadowing
Okay.
me. So I'm still in charge. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
the senior pastor, but officially the handover will be beginning of
Yeah.
January 2026. So that's huge.
So a lot of people, Pastor Cole, are, thinking, well, it seems like Pastor Cole just came up with this idea like a month ago and just thought maybe, I don't know, I'll just choose Pastor Josh, right? But could you kind of share with us, because you shared really well at our special members meeting that we had, and you really gave a very uh, in-depth look at where this all started. So can you just share with us where this all started? It wasn't like last week, but it was was it 15 years ago that God spoke to you?
Well, I'll go even further
Okay.
back than 15 years. When I was elected in 1994
Mhm.
and became the lead pastor, it really struck me of the huge
Yeah.
responsibility of the leading the church. When I thought about at that particular time, we were just shy of celebrating our 50th anniversary
Mm,
since the church was
mm,
started, and the Vincents were the founding pastors, the Sturgeons, the Sassers, the Sap, and then and me. So when I looked at our rich history, I was struck with the thought of Lord. Every one of these pastors had a contribution in
mm.
bringing our church to where we are today. And I prayed this prayer, Lord, I pray that I will not mess it up.
Yeah.
I pray that my time as the lead
Yeah.
pastor will just be a part of history,
Mm,
and that when my time comes to an end, I will
mm,
be able to hand it off to the next leader in the
mm,
succession, right, of leadership in a way that will take the church to its
mm,
next season. So with that in mind, since being elected, I've always thought about that one day there would be a transition,
mhm.
and one day I would be handing it off to the next leader. Now back then, I didn't know who it was, and I had no idea. All I knew was, okay, Lord, just help me to be faithful, help me to be a good steward
Mm,
of the trust that was given to me. And so I was 35 at that time, and it was in 1994. And just about when I reached you know age 50, and the church had already, we've already seen some great things happening. The vision had
mm,
taken root in our church, and yeah, it was really, we were seeing good things happening. It just dawned on me that if I don't prepare for transition,
Mm.
the next pastor could just dismantle
Yeah.
everything as quicker than it took to build it
Right.
up. So that's when I began to pray. Lord, um, how do I begin to prepare for succession?
Mm.
And that was like 15 years
Mm.
into my uh,
Mhm.
era as pastor here. And I really believe the Lord spoke to me. He says, in 15 years,
Mm.
you would be transitioning. So I've always held on to that 15 years.
Mm.
So for the last 15 years, that's been a huge part of my prayer,
Mm.
raising up the next generation, making sure that when the time comes, we have a group of pastors and we have a culture, we have a
Mhm.
vision that will be able to be passed on to
Mm.
the next generation. And so, to answer your question, it really started 15 years ago, and been praying and waiting upon the Lord as to how who it was
Yeah.
and how it would take place.
Mhm.
Listening to different pastors, superintendents, uh, on how they transitioned,
Mm.
and so yeah. So it's been that long,
Mm.
preparing and praying about it.
So how were you praying? Was there anything specific that as you went before the Lord that you would pray in a certain way?
Well, Jesus is pray and watch, right?
Mm.
So I
Okay.
pray and I'm watching,
Mm.
and I'm praying and I'm watching as to who might be the
Okay.
next pastor. So, um, you know, Pastor Josh was not like a shoe in,
Yeah.
because when he first when he graduated from
Mhm.
Southwestern, now Nelson University, he was so fired up, and he came right from college, became the youth pastor
Right.
of our church. So I knew God's hand was upon him, and he kept talking about he's called to missions.
Right.
He's called to China,
Mm.
Cambodia,
Mm.
and so now, like Mary, I pondered a lot
Mm.
of these things in my heart, and I thought, Lord, maybe he's not the one.
Mm.
If he's called to missions, then maybe he will not want to,
Yeah.
be here. I would never force that on him. I
Right.
would never want him to give up God's
Mm.
destiny. So it wasn't necessarily, oh, you're my son and you're gonna. No, I said, if God's called you to be a missionary,
Mm.
I said, then so I didn't tell him that, but
Mm.
I was trying to resolve in my heart, Lord, if it's not him, then
Mm.
who?
Mhm.
And but as he began to settle down and he got married
Yeah.
and started to have kids, I heard less talk about, uprooting and moving, because now he's having to establish
Yeah.
his life and his family here. And so that's when I began to wonder, okay, maybe it could be.
Mm.
It could be him. And I've seen a lot of the characteristics of
Mm.
the potential that within him, and how God was just using
Mm.
him in different ways, that I thought, wow, that would be a great
Mm.
asset to the church.
Yeah.
So giving him the freedom, to function in his gifting
Mhm.
while in his role as a youth pastor, but also doing a lot of other things. I was observing for many
Mm.
years, and praying
Yeah.
and watching to see if he, truly was the one.
Mm.
And so, um, about 5 years ago, this is about like even I'm not sure if it was just predates COVID or just about,
Mhm.
when COVID hit. Um, there there was John and
Mhm.
Melina Harkey came, and as usual, they would, you know,
Mhm.
do their ministry and move in the prophetic. And there was one particular time I think it was a Sunday night,
Mm.
he wanted to talk to us privately. So he
Mm.
called me and all the kids into my
Mm,
office. And, after, just all of us gathered, he went up to Josh and Kim and he prophesied. And
mm.
in his prophecy, he just said it that you're going to one day lead this church. And I'm thinking, okay, are you sure? You better be clear. You better make sure you're not just saying it because
Yeah.
so interestingly, he prophesied that
Mm.
and none of us ever talked about it
Wow.
because it was almost like,
Mm,
okay, but I pondered that.
mm,
And so throughout the years leading up, I've had different superintendents
yeah.
and leaders, respected leaders that when they seen him on the pulpit and they just say,
Mm,
"I believe he's gonna one day he's gonna lead,
wow.
succeed you." So these things I pondered, but I never took it like, okay,
Yeah.
it's a shoe in.
Mm,
And there was one particular time I think was the 75th anniversary, and one of our guests came and
mm.
um, she she went up to Kim, walking in the parking lot and randomly says, "I believe the Lord showed me that you one day you and Josh, you're gonna be and leading this church." Now, we had not and I had not shared with her anything,
Mm.
but she moves in prophetic. And then, then this guest, speaker came down to my office apologizing. "I hope I didn't overstep. I hope I didn't say something I should," but I just felt so led to speak over Kim, and I felt the Lord. And that's when I shared with her in confidence. I said,
Mm,
"Well, that maybe was to confirm maybe the inevitable."
mm.
And, but I said, "Nothing has been announced at that
Yeah.
particular time."
Mhm.
Yeah, so there've been clues and there've been
Right.
signs that kind of help settle in my heart that
Mhm.
the Lord was leading us to this end.
So I know that there are a lot of ministers and pastors, and some of them may be older. I know in our district, and
Mhm,
there's a lot of pastors that are at that place where succession is in the cards. And you said you're watching, you're praying. I'm just kind of curious because you said you're looking for certain things. And for those who are listening, maybe that would be helpful. Like, what are some of the things that we should look for as far as succession,
mhm,
as when it comes to that person?
mhm.
What were some of the things that would
Well, number
that
one,
you would look for?
in our context, um, embracing the vision.
Mm,
And that was one of my concerns that if someone from the outside comes in
right,
and has a different vision.
right.
Of course, what they're gonna do is just, superimpose their vision over
Hmm.
the vision of the church, and in some cases, maybe nothing's happening in the
Yeah.
church and they need a fresh vision, but in our context, there's a lot of good things that are happening.
Hmm.
A lot of
Yeah.
the culture's healthy,
Hmm.
so, to bring someone from the outside with their own vision
Mm,
could be very disruptive.
right.
And then versus someone that's raised in a house,
Mm,
is not just just doesn't is a son of the house, but
hmm.
is a son of the vision.
Mm,
And so I'm looking at, okay, how committed he was to the vision.
mm,
And secondly was, does he have a real passion, for the Lord? And of course, the vision to reach a loss is
mm,
is something I look for, as that's part of the vision of our
yeah.
church. The also the capacity um, to take the church to the next level. In other words, it's not just someone that's going to maintain what
Mm,
is, but see what could be
mm,
and reach the next gen. Because
mm,
for me, I knew that I had come, after 30 years of leading a church, I'm not as connected to the
mm,
next generation.
mm,
And I have a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, but practically speaking, they
mm,
don't necessarily see me as,
mm,
a part of their generation. So really feel I saw within him he was working with the youth and working with
Mhm.
some of his own peers who are pastors and
Mhm.
ministers. That yeah, that there was the potential
Mm.
within him to actually take the church beyond where I had brought the
Mm.
church.
Wow. So you're looking, because what's interesting too is that you also sit in the seat of a district superintendent.
Right.
So you've also seen other churches transition as well, and to and there and the ones that I'm guessing the ones that have transitioned better most times, not all the time, or is someone who's raised in the house, is a son of the vision or daughter of the vision. They love the Lord, they have a passion for people, and are connected to that next generation.
Hmm.
Oh, that's really
Yeah.
interesting. And so, 15 years ago, God speaks to you, and you're praying, you're watching, and God starts confirming through all these different avenues. And now, can you share about I think you were looking for a speaker and she had dropped out. Can you share about that? She had dropped out, and someone was sharing that at some conference that you were at on the
Right.
mainland or something, and that's how God started actually. Now let's talk about the how the transition itself
Hmm.
started.
So knowing that my 65th year was coming,
Mm,
and that would be the 15th year, which was 2025, right? And so about 2 years before, I'm praying. I say, "Good God, I need some clarity."
yeah.
And I've talked to a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
that I knew that had transitioned, but Lord, now I need some real solid direction. So I believe it was in 2023 towards the end,
Mm-hmm.
we were planning for the next year's district conference.
Yeah.
So I had booked a speaker, one of our general council leaders,
Mm-hmm.
to be the speaker, but because of health reasons,
Mm-hmm.
she had to pull out. So I'm attending a general council or
Mm,
a general presbyter's function in the mainland, and I'm saying, God, I really need to hear from you
mm,
because I need to fill that slot,
mm-hmm.
and because our district conference was coming up in 2024, and so I'm praying, and who's one of the speaker was Dr. Ron McManus.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about transition to all of
Mm,
the superintendents because many of us
yeah.
in our districts, we're dealing with churches that are
Mm-hmm.
ready to transition. So he's doing a session on transition.
Mm,
And as I'm listening to him, the Lord says, invite him
mm,
to be a speaker at our district conference. So I went up to him and I briefly shared, why we were looking for a speaker, and I said, uh, at the same time, while you are in Hawaii, I would like to talk to you about
mm,
our transition.
mm,
And he's the president and founder of Legacy Transition Group, which
mhm,
uh, focuses on working with churches on transitioning.
mm,
And so he checked his calendar and says, "Hey, I'm open." I said, "Good, okay." So we quickly booked him. So fast forward into 2024, we had him, and he did a he spoke at a district conference,
I remember
and
that.
specifically um, talking about being a transitional pastor
Mm,
and leading transition and all of that. And when the conference concluded on Thursday, um, I had a private meeting with he and Eunice,
mm,
our business administrator, to just begin to talk about
mm,
what was upon my heart.
mhm,
And so he gave us some great advice, um, and the first thing he asked is, "Well, have you talked to your son about it?" I says,
mm.
"No." "Well, I think you need to talk to him about it. We need to see if he's open to it." I said, "Yeah, I haven't said anything to him," and so I think that's what you were referring to
Yeah.
because it was shortly after that meeting I said, "Hey, Josh, we need to talk." And, so I think I set up a meeting with,
Yeah.
he and Kim
Yeah.
just to, you know, broach it
Mm.
and say, "Would you pray?"
Mhm.
And, so that's when I had that quick meeting. It was I explained to him, meeting with, Dr. Ron, and he had asked me if I had asked you. I said, "No." He said, "I think you had asked if
Yeah.
he's open or not." I said, "Okay." So he said he'll pray, and then, because I wanted him to pray, of course,
Mhm.
and, I I especially wanted Kim to pray,
Yeah.
right? Because it's important that she really, hears from God too.
Mm.
So I think they took several weeks,
Mm.
to just wait upon the Lord, and
Mhm.
so, yeah, that's kinda when we started the process.
Yeah. If you listen to the other podcasts, I think Pastor Josh shares in that other podcast a couple of episodes ago that he said you asked him and then you just went away on a trip.
Yeah,
And he's like, "What? What? Oh, okay."
because I think I had to fit in our meeting, and, he's busy, I'm busy, so he had to fit,
Yeah.
but then after that meeting, I had to leave Dodge, and so I did my part, but, just waited for them to get back to me,
Yeah.
because I couldn't move forward until once
Hmm.
he confirms, then there
Right.
was a meeting with the board of directors,
Okay.
so everything had to be in sequence.
So once Pastor Josh was open to the idea, was it at that point then Pastor Ron McManus would come in and start the process, or how did that work?
I think it was, we had set up a, special, board meeting,
Mm.
um, and, that's when he shared the 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 concept,
Mm.
of transitioning, not from the old traditional way,
Mm.
but the way they've been doing it, that have
Okay.
shown, more success than the old traditional
Can
way.
you talk about that? So Dr. Ron is talking about the old versus the new
Yeah.
and why we should
So he
embrace the new.
presented to the board 2 ways,
Yeah.
churches transition, um, and normally in a more traditional church,
Mhm.
the pastor would, just, uh, feel led, okay, his season's coming to an end, and, he would write a letter, and my last day would be, say, you know, January 1st.
Mm.
And so what would happen is the board of directors would now become the search committee.
Mm.
And what they would do is they would, kind of put out, you know, uh, I guess, feelers out across the nation, across the state, as to who would be available,
Mm.
right? And really a lot of as the board of directors, they're great in what they do in their business,
Right.
but they don't necessarily know what to look for.
Mm.
All they know is we need to find someone.
Mhm.
And so they'll get a few names and they'll set up a time. Okay, you'll speak. They call it candidating. A pastor will,
Mm.
who's interested, will come in and they'll candidate, and they'll speak on a Sunday. They'll meet with the board. They'll speak, and then if there's another one, they'll
Yeah.
speak. And usually it starts that way. And sometimes in some church you'll get you get some board members liking this one versus this one, and you never want to put two candidates out, because if the half the church wants this guy, half the church wants
Right.
the other guy, then you'll divide the church.
Mm.
So usually they'll try to screen and maybe have one.
Mm.
And but the what happens is that a lot of times the pastor will come in, and the only thing they really know about this
Mhm.
pastor is maybe their resume and their one time they spoke.
Mm.
And he'll come in, and sadly, uh, a lot
Mm.
of selections don't work out.
Mm.
The pastor will last for 2 years,
Yeah.
4 years, and then he's off to
Mhm.
another church, and the church is left again to
Mm.
look for another pastor. And sadly, there's a lot of churches that are caught in that cycle
Mm.
of trying out different pastors. Dr. Ron's method, which is a lot of pastors and churches are more leaning towards,
Mhm.
is being more intentional and trying to kind of raise up from within.
Mm.
That's the best way.
Mhm.
But if not, maybe have more of a better process of you know uh, bringing someone that is more in line with the
Yeah.
vision, having a more long term runway right
Mm.
before they get
Mhm.
selected in. So fortunately, in our context, you know, uh, Josh is not just a son, of the house, but he's a spiritual son, but he's also biological son,
Mhm.
which is rare, but
Mhm.
there are good stories. Um, but in some cases, like I'm a spiritual son of
Mm.
Pastor Sapp,
Yeah.
and when I was uh, being considered during that time when I got elected as the next pastor, Pastor Rick Seward was the apostolic
Mm.
leader at that time, kind of
Mhm.
like Ron, who stepped in.
Mm.
Pastor Rick
Oh, I see.
was the apostolic leader to help navigate,
Mm.
yeah, this whole process.
Okay. So we had so kind of fast forwarding, but I remember Dr. Ron sharing his thoughts about what he thought about how this whole process went, and having Pastor Josh as the candidate. And can you share with us like his take on what he saw as far as you, and then transitioning to Pastor Josh? Can you share with us like what his thoughts were as far as where we are in a position as a church?
Mm.
Was it a good thing? What do you remember what
Oh, yeah,
he was
he
saying?
felt really good, but obviously we had to present it to the board,
Mm,
and we had the board pray
okay.
about what they thought about my proposal. So I put forth a name, but I said, "Hey, if the Lord
Mm,
speaks to you about others, then you need to bring it up." So we let them know. I think in maybe in October
mm,
of 2024, and because you remember we had our annual membership meeting, and that's when
right.
we had announced to the membership. We
You're right.
amended the
Yeah.
bylaws, but then we also that's when I think I shared for the first time to
Mm-hmm.
the membership
Yep.
that I felt the Lord was preparing the church for transition, and we had retained Dr. Ron
Mm,
McManus to lead us through that transition. So that was it 2024,
mm-hmm.
our annual membership meeting. So many of them were shocked that like,
Yep.
oh, wow, this is the first time.
I was shocked.
And so it was after that meeting, once they voted,
Mm,
they approved that. Dr. Ron met with the board and said, okay, we want the board to be in prayer
mm,
and give their approval of who
mm,
they believe, if they believe Pastor Josh is or someone. I think it was the beginning of the year.
mm.
And so we met at the beginning of the year, and they all came, and they all were affirmative that they believed Josh was
Mm. Wow.
the next one to be presented
Right.
to. And the so this is where the difference comes in, is that once they approved the one person to
Mhm.
be placed before membership.
Mhm.
The membership would vote either to affirm or not to
Mhm.
affirm their decision. And so that's what happened on June 11th.
Mm.
It was affirming him, but um, it was just affirming him to be pastor elect. So as pastor elect, the he's going to shadow me
Right.
until um, the first of the year.
Mhm.
Until then, there's a shadowing process, right?
Mm.
So, so that's what that's kind of the season we're in right now, where He's
Mm,
shadowing me in all of our um, financial meetings, board meetings, private meetings.
yeah.
He's learning things that he's never
Mhm.
known before
Right.
about what a pastor goes through, and especially what I go through on a daily
Yeah.
basis.
I remember he was telling me that, that now he's thinking, right? You guys are having this, I think it was Father's Day, you're having this barbecue, right? And now you're just grandpa, right?
Mhm,
You're not Pastor Cole, you're not over one church in 6 locations and churches around the world and the shelter and Christian Academy. You're just dad, right?
mhm,
You're just grandpa. And he's just like, wow, he was carrying all of that, and yet he's still present, right,
mhm,
as grandpa or dad. Um, yeah, I think, yeah, just this whole process, when we met. So one of the other things that I really appreciated was that, was it the day before June 11th, you had a meeting with your staff,
mhm.
and can you share about that? How, why did you have that meeting, and what happened and transpired in that meeting?
Well, I think it's, for me, it's really important that, I value I value, my relationships,
Mhm.
especially relationships with pastors and staff.
Yeah.
So there's always, Jesus had his, 70, and
Mhm.
then his, 12, and then his inner core, and each one had different levels of you know, intimacy,
Mhm.
so to speak. So, um throughout this whole process, the elders were were in the know. They were the
Mhm.
first ones to know, right?
Was it they were before the board?
Before the board,
Okay.
even before um, I
Okay.
met Dr. Ron, I was
Oh.
already transparent
Mm.
with the elders about
Mhm.
what I was sensing, and so they've always been in the know, and who I thought would be a potential candidate
Mhm.
before we even solidified it. And then the next one is, of course, because of the bylaws, I needed to include the board, the
Mhm.
board of directors, and but before I go to the membership, I felt that it was important that I communicated to my pastors and
Mhm.
to my staff
Mhm.
about what, because they all knew that there was this
Yeah.
special meeting, right? What was the meeting for?
We didn't know.
And so, well, I think we had kind of hinted, right? Forget what you guys didn't know who it was.
Yeah, we didn't know
You
who it
knew that
was.
this meeting was about, selecting the next, elect
Mhm.
pastor elect. So I think among the pastors, like, who is it? Who is it? So I felt that
Yeah.
before we made it to that meeting and made it known, I wanted to have, Dr. Ron
Mhm.
and all of you to know and ask questions.
Right.
And so that was pretty much what it was. Is to
And the reason I bring up that meeting is, in that meeting, Dr. Ron, I love how he answered. So I had a lot of questions,
Mhm.
and I was like, I'm gonna ask. This has to do with my livelihood. I'm just gonna just ask. So I asked a lot of questions, but one of the questions I did ask was, why one candidate, right? And you've explained, he explained what you
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
explained to us. But the thing that I really appreciated was the fact that he said this wasn't just a pastor code decision, right? It was the elders, it was the board, right? And then you started adding in all these other confirmations about
Mhm.
this leader talking to Kim in the parking lot and John Harkey, right? And all of a sudden, we start to see a bigger picture where it's not just Pastor Cole decision only, right? And that, to me, when he shared that, he said this is a leadership decision. It's not a Pastor Cole
Mhm.
decision. It's a leadership decision. Once he said that, and really put and framed and put everything into context, and we could see the history now of what God was doing. It was at that point I'm like, wow, God is really in this, and that's where I had a real peace about it. So I really appreciated that part of
Mhm.
the meeting, and appreciated you giving us that opportunity to ask those questions, because it really helped me, especially when people come to me, I'm able to give them the right answers. So 24 hours later, or the next day, um, you're preparing for this meeting. What's going through your mind and your
Well,
heart
I
at that
think
time?
preparing is sometimes the hardest because
Hmm.
you can't share all the information,
Yeah.
and you have to do it sequentially, and you
Hmm.
have to do it without revealing too much, because if you reveal too much prematurely,
Yeah.
you create more questions.
Hmm.
So leading up, right? Going back since 2023, 2024, everything is kept at a
Hmm.
at the level it needed to be.
Hmm.
And so as we're getting closer, it gets a little more, I guess, I'm not nervous, but you kind of get a little anxious.
Hmm.
Okay, almost like giving birth, right? I can feel it coming. We're gonna give birth tomorrow, and so I kind of felt,
Wow.
but because you never know,
Mm.
like nothing's sealed until it's
Mhm.
sealed, right?
Mhm.
Nothing's.
Mhm.
Everyone can decide. They can say no, we don't
Right.
believe, and so you never know how this thing would play
Mm.
out. And so, yeah, leading up to it was very, it took a lot of. I'm just praying and saying, okay, God, because there are a lot of logistical things. Okay, how are we gonna announce it?
Mm.
What do we put on the ballots? And
Mm.
we're doing all of
Mm.
this in the shadow of night, right? Not to reveal too
Mm.
much,
Mm.
because we want to make sure that it doesn't get anything leak out. And I think I shared, what is it, the couple of Sundays before, about the special announcement. I said,
What?
remember when I shared that video and I put up a graphic of the conclave,
Oh, yeah.
the selecting of
The smoke.
the next pope, and I showed black smoke and white smoke.
Uh,
I said, so during that announcement, I said,
yeah.
right now it's black smoke. I said, on June 11th, it will be white smoke. So don't ask me who, and don't presume. Just know that we are in prayer. And then
Yeah.
on that day, the smoke
Mm.
will be white. You'll know
Mhm.
who it
Mhm.
is. So kind of adding a little humor
Mhm.
to the anticipation of what was going to
Yeah.
transpire in that day.
Yeah. So
So
you're driving up to the parking lot, you know, this is what you've been praying about from 30 years ago. You've been praying about this. God spoke to you 15 years ago, and now tonight is that night is the
mhm.
night. And as you're going into the church, what were some of the thoughts that you had? What were you thinking at that time?
Well, I think it's for me, my part in it. So we kind
Mm.
of divided. The part was, I would share the context.
Yeah.
I would share the history of what brought us,
Mm.
and then I would turn it over to Dr.
Mhm.
Ron,
Okay.
because I asked him to conduct that part of the meeting.
Mm.
And which he I didn't expect him to do it, but he kind of decided, I want to just interview
That was so
uh,
good.
Pastor Josh and
Yeah.
Kim, so people can have a
Yeah.
clear understanding,
Yeah.
right, before the vote.
Mhm.
And so that was a good idea.
No, I thought it was an excellent idea
Yeah,
because people who had questions,
yeah,
they couldn't. I mean, it would take a long time if everyone asked
yeah,
questions, but it was almost like the membership was interviewing them.
hmm,
So
yeah.
what he asked Dr. For those of you who weren't there, Dr. Ron asked Pastor Josh some hard questions. He asked Pastor Josh, like, what is your 3 to 5 year plan? If you could change anything, what would you change? But and then he gave Kim all the easy questions.
She came up with some good answers too.
Yeah. I could see like Pastor Josh, he's like moving around like this, like, ah. And then at one point, Pastor Josh just said, man, these are some hard questions. But I felt it was really
Hmm,
necessary in order for us to make a very well informed uh vote.
hmm.
So I just wanted to say that I really appreciated that part of it.
I mean, God was good.
Hmm.
We had the worship team.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like from the beginning to end, the presence of God was
Yeah.
there. It's like
Yeah.
we had church in
Right.
a different way.
Yeah.
And then after they finished, I went up, and I really felt that it was important that I kinda gave like I shared the
Mhm,
context,
mhm.
what led up because some people think, "Oh, this is, this just happened within the last few months,
Right.
and we're making a quick decision," and
Mhm.
I wanted to assure them that this wasn't like, just a flippant decision, and,
Mm.
I wanted to let them know that this was a process of 15 years
Mm.
of prayer
Yeah.
and waiting and upon the Lord, and within and even within the last 2 years of really the Lord putting down some concrete steps to
Yeah.
get to us to where it is, and I wanted to assure them that, we're not leaving the church, we're just changing seats,
Right.
right? And to let them know that we're still connected with the vision.
Mhm.
I'm going to be transitioning to a more apostolic advisor,
Mhm.
which is more focusing on our church plants.
Mhm.
I will be, helping leaders, not just in our church, but also continuing to serve as the
Right.
district superintendent. So,
Mhm.
I mean, up to now, I've been wearing both hats.
Mhm.
So maybe, once I, I'm relieved of leading the church, I could spend more time,
Yeah.
with other churches.
Mhm.
So just kind of giving that context so that because we've had people come up and say, "Oh, we're going to miss you." I said, "We're not going to go anywhere. You're going to see us around." And so that kind of
Yeah.
assured them that, yeah, this is just it's not like the old way where the old way was when Pastor Sapp retired,
Mm.
they were actually planning on moving to California because that's
Mm.
what pastors do.
Yeah.
They they leave.
Yeah.
And it was really, upon our insistence that they remain here,
Mhm.
um, in this church and on this island because
Yeah.
over the 18 years, they had built
Right.
relationships and a support system. So, yeah, so they stayed and we honored them, and
Mhm.
the church was very generous to take care of them until, he passed and Sister Sat passed. But so just kinda give that context
Yeah.
that this is a we're gonna transition, but it's gonna be, more of a God-led, a
Mhm.
spirit-led transition.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So Pastor Josh, Kim, they're getting interviewed. Pastor Josh is getting grilled by Dr. Ron. And after that, he gets up and he takes the vote.
Mhm.
And the worship team comes up and they're leading worship. Uh, how was that for you? Now the votes taking place, they're counting it, and the worship's going a little longer. So what was going on as for you as they're now counting the same thing or
Same thing, it's just
okay.
kind of, okay, I wonder, what the vote will turn
Mm,
out to be, and I was super pleased that I think
yeah,
he had, over
right.
92% and, overwhelming, support, and I said, "Hey," I jokingly said, "I think you got more votes than I
I
did when I
think you
first,"
did.
because, um, you know, we didn't do it necessarily the way it was done, that night when I
Mm,
took over,
mm,
but the other thing is that when I took over, our church was in a different season.
yeah.
We were, going through a very difficult,
Mhm,
uh, transition. Pastor Sapp had fallen sick. We had just moved onto the property. We had a huge debt load. People had left the
yeah.
church, and the church there was some, kind of like splintering in the church, and we were just teetering. And so, I guess people were a little more anxious.
Mm,
We weren't as healthy as
yeah.
we are today. So they had reason to be concerned that
Mm,
who is this young man
yeah.
and to follow Pastor Sapp. And so I'm sure there are those that didn't feel like I had the capacity.
Mhm,
And but again, it was the faithful members that
mm,
didn't focus on man but focused on God,
wow.
that they came up to me and says, "Pastor, we believe you're God's selection, and
Mm,
this is our church. We're not going to go anywhere."
wow.
And they supported Sister Co and I, and So today when I ask, "Hey, how many of you were
Yeah.
there when we transition?" And, I see the few
Wow.
hands, right? There's
Yeah.
still over
Mhm.
30, and many of them were older, so many of them passed away, so
Yeah.
but there's still a remnant of
Mhm.
people that actually are still here today that remembers what
Yeah.
we went through.
So they give you the count, 92% approved, and so did you I can't remember, did you go up and or
Yeah.
there's a Dr. Ron went up who went up and announced
Well, it was
the
Dr. Ron that
results?
announced, and then
Okay.
after that, I came up to close
Mm.
the service, and, that's when I kinda jokingly said, "Hey, you got more than I did," 'cause, the the natural thought is, "Who's the 8% that didn't vote for you?" Who Hey, don't focus on the ones who didn't vote, just focus on the ones that
Yeah.
that, stood with you and affirmed, and so
Yeah.
yeah, you're always gonna have you're not I think Ron says, "Beware when all people speak well of you."
Mhm.
So I said, "Maybe it's good that not all people spoke well of you."
Yeah, yeah.
That, yeah.
So how did you feel at this point? All the work from 30 years ago and you coming in
I
and
felt
you're
I
anxious.
felt relief because
Yeah.
it was finally like, we had finally, right, given birth. It was finally out. It was
Mm.
finally done.
Mm.
Now the work is not done. We're still
Yeah.
transitioning, but the main part was done.
Yeah.
Now the next phase is for him to shadow me
Right.
and for him to ask as many questions,
Mhm.
like you're asking,
Yeah.
right? While I'm still alive,
Yeah.
ask questions.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know we don't have time to get into all of it, but number one, it was an incredible night. I think it was a night to remember for those who are there. They can see that I was there when the transition happened, and it was pretty incredible to see God's hand over all of
Mhm.
it. And moving forward, subsequently after that, you had a flurry of one-on-one meetings with different pastors, different leaders. And what was the thought behind not just Pastor Josh transitioning into the senior pastor elect, but then there was a flurry of meetings that happened afterwards. What can you talk a little bit about that? You don't have to go fully into it, but uh, there was like another transition after the transition.
Well, because uh, once we got through, settling the transition between Pastor Josh and myself, um, that starts a domino effect,
Mm,
right? Because there were other transitions that was still that I was thinking. Number one, the main one was that okay, he's going to
mm,
start transitioning to Red Hill
yeah.
while he's right now he's the regional pastor for East
Yes.
Honolulu. So one transition triggers another transition,
Hmm.
and then there were other transitions in the works that um, I couldn't make a final decision until I knew
Mm,
you know he was selected.
hmm.
So once he was selected, then I began to meet with not just with the one who's going to succeed him in East Honolulu, but I had other pastors
Hmm.
are moving, and we call it and we've done this several
Right.
times in our church. We call it leaders shift.
Right.
So we have so upcoming, right? There are going to be
Hmm.
some leader shifts going on internally
Hmm.
to, I believe, set it up for when
Yeah.
he takes over, and, so he doesn't have to do that. I feel like God wants me to set it up and, so that he can step right into
Hmm.
a kinda like a new wineskin for
Yeah.
now. Um, yeah, so that there's gonna be quite a lot of shifting going on
Yeah.
within our pastoral staff.
And I feel like it's almost like David and Solomon, right? David, he had everything set
Mhm.
so that Solomon could step in and build the house of the
Yeah.
Lord. So, uh, what's really neat for me as we close is you are announcing. So what just happened as of this recording? What just happened this week was you had a meeting with all of your leaders, and you announced all of these subsequent transitions to all of our leaders. And one of the things that really struck me was that you were, how old were you when you became senior pastor? You
35,
were 35, and Josh, as of this recording, he's
6.
36, right? So it's almost like it literally is like almost 30 years
Mhm.
ago. And just I was when you had announced my change, and I had told you,
Which, by the way,
oh,
congratulations.
thank you.
By the time, you hear this podcast,
Yeah,
you will find out, but it's already official. Beginning July 1st,
yeah,
you became an elder,
yeah. Thank you,
uh,
Pastor Cole.
of the church, and so now you join the ranks of old people.
Yes, I am very old, guys.
So, but it's not just age, it's
Mm,
wisdom, it's
mhm.
experience, and I've been watching you and seeing how you've just really grown. And you, I believe, was Josh part of your youth
Yes.
ministry? So he kind of
Yep.
grew up under your ministry.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is that your age is right between both of ours.
I'm exactly like right in the middle. So
Yeah,
I'm 15 years younger than you and 15 years
yeah,
older than Josh.
yeah. So you're the bridger.
Yeah.
So I didn't plan it that way. I didn't realize what,
Yeah.
because you always look like you're about 30 something years old. So when I think Sister Co brought it up to me that you were
Yeah.
kind of right in between, and
Mhm.
I said, "How old is he?" And 51.
Yeah,
I
51
go,
this year, yeah.
"Wow." So, but anyway, it just really it to me confirms because it was your grandpa
Mm,
when I was when I took the lead of this
mhm.
church. It was your grandpa, Pastor Yasuhara, that was the stabilizer.
Yeah.
And because Pastor Yasuhara had preceded all the other pastors,
Mhm.
he was there from the founding of the
Yeah.
church and continued to remain. And I still remember him saying, people would ask if he would, uh, you know, uh,
Mm,
put his name to be the senior pastor, and he knew that he wasn't called to be the
mm.
lead or senior pastor, but he was always called to be the best senior associate
Right.
pastor. And with that humble attitude, God elevated him to be the superintendent of the
Mm,
district.
mhm.
So when I was elected, and in 1994, Pastor Yasuhara was already in place, and he was like the stabilizer,
Yeah.
because there were a lot of old timers back then that questioned whether
Mhm.
I was the guy or whether I could
Mm,
do it. And they went directly to him. And
mm.
he would says, don't worry,
Yeah.
God's hand is upon him. And
Mhm.
and I at least I had the sense, enough sense to that before I made any changes,
Right.
I would go to him and say, Pastor Yasuhara, I'm thinking about making this change. What do you think? He goes, I think that's a good idea. I said, but what about the old timers? You just tell them, come and see me. And
Wow.
so he would smooth the
Mm.
feathers,
Mhm.
and he was that stabilizer.
Mhm.
So throughout my years of ministry, I always kept my eyes upon Pastor Sap and Pastor Yasuhara,
Mm.
because when they passed,
Mhm.
um, it was like for me, the Lord was saying, "Okay, I kept them alive long enough,
Mm.
and that where you would need them, and now it's time for them to leave. You can do it." So
Mm.
they were there for a
Yeah.
specific purpose,
Mhm.
and so yeah, there are people that God has placed in my life that
Mm.
um, have helped me to get to where I'm at today.
Mhm.
That I recognize it was God's providence
Yeah.
for them to be a part of my ministry, and what they have imparted to
Mhm.
me. So I want to be the same for
Mm.
for Pastor Josh, and also for all the pastors.
Yeah.
Yeah, to help you reach your
Yeah.
potential.
And Pastor Cole, you are the only senior pastor that I have ever known. I mean, especially as an adult, and this is my only job that I've ever
Hmm.
had, and so it's it's going to be a transition for
Hmm.
me as well. to not see you as my senior pastor, right? You are my senior pastor, my spiritual father. But I really do believe that God has something great in store for our church,
Mhm.
and I'm looking forward and anticipation for what God's about to do. And I told you before the taping of this podcast that just as my grandfather was there for you, now I have the privilege of being
Mhm.
there for the next senior pastor, which was Pastor Yasuhara, Pastor Cole. Now it's Andrew and Josh,
Yasuhara.
Yasuhara and Cole, Cole Yasuhara. So it's uh I am called to this church, and
Mm.
it's just neat to see how God has aligned generationally from one generation to the
Mhm.
next, to the next, to the next, right? So my grandfather to you, to me, now to
Mhm.
Pastor Josh. It's so neat to see how God has ordained all of this.
Well, I know it's gonna be different,
Yeah.
but, just remember the words of Jesus, "When you've seen the Son, you've seen the Father." So, you see when you see Josh, just hopefully you're gonna see me.
He has a lot of you in him. He does. And yeah, you have done a great job, not only as a senior pastor to Pastor Josh, but as a father.
Mhm.
I've seen you just lead him and guide him and raise him to be the man that he is today. He really
Mhm.
is a true man of God,
Mhm.
and a big part of it, a large part of it is because of you. So
Amen.
so thank you, Pastor Cole, for joining us today. And I know that many of you are really appreciating, Pastor Cole, that you opened up your heart and you shared just behind the scenes. We got a glimpse into what was going on for these past 2 years. I didn't even know most of this until just recently. And so thank you for sharing with us. And especially 30 years from now, when
Mhm.
people ask, so what was it like on June 11th, 2025? We have record of it. So thank you so much for joining us today. And God bless you and thank you.
Amen.
And so until next time, remember that God's calling us not only to be saved, but He's calling us to be sent, because this God's calling us to be apostolos. So God bless you guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
God
See you later.
bless.
God bless you.
For more information on this podcast, visit firstaog.com/apostolos.